Good afternoon. Shades of spring today. Really pleasant. It's 62 degrees. There is no wind and the sun is out. However, I've now noticed my eyes are itching like mad, and one of the pains of age is that apparently I've discovered allergies as I've gotten older. But it will pass. The Congress today made me feel like I was thrust back in a time machine to 2016. And I was supporting Hillary Clinton then. I was a delegate for her at the Democratic Convention. And I watched Comey, who was investigating her emails, so called, first clear Hillary, then a month out from the election say, I don't really know. And we're opening up the investigation again. And then 2 days before the election, he cleared her, and Fox falsely said that she might be indicted if elected. I was on CNN 2 days before the election, on the day that Comey did this horrendous act as an investigator, prosecutor, and as a citizen. And I said he should resign. He should resign before he goes home at night, and this will be the one act that we remember when he passes from this earth. Now, there are other things that could be added since, obviously, but I was on the air with that worthless former Harvard professor, Dershowitz, who took issue with me, and we had to go at it, and you can find it online. So that was 2016, and that's when Trump became president. There were other things going on, but that was pretty dramatic, and I think was the nudge that made the difference in the battleground states where the electors counted, because Hillary got the popular vote, but she didn't get enough electors. Now here we have what? We have a guy go to the Hill today. Garland appointed Robert Hur, H-U-R, as a special prosecutor to investigate the documents that Biden volunteered he had. Very different than Trump, as you know. Now, Garland appointed her, thought to be a Republican sympathizer. That said, apparently his investigation found no criminal intent for the documents that Biden had, that he voluntarily said he had, that he was prepared to return and do whatever was necessary. Now, this confidential report that Hur wrote contained slanders, a variety of them, including that Biden, he was forgetful, that he was an old man, as if this was the defense, when there were a whole number of things that also justified the notion that this was not intentional under any circumstances. And the reference to him being forgetful overlooked a reference in the papers in the investigation that he had a photographic memory. And there's been evidence of that. So don't mistake a forgotten stutter that reoccurs from time to time as evidence of anything having to do with his intelligence or cognitive ability. Yet that is the theme of the political campaign the Republicans are waging as compared to Trump, who has shown very distinct and multiple examples of cognitive compromise, if you will. So Hur is basically part of a political hit, but he couldn't do it on his own. The confidential report that he wrote for A.G. Garland released to the public. And now, the day of the hearing summoned by the Republicans, he's releasing transcripts as well. So we are chasing Biden by the Republicans for political reasons, and Biden was ably represented by several Democrats on the committee who pointed out how it was just not the case that Biden had any of these difficulties, and that Biden had not committed anything close to willingly. And I think it was Zoe Lofgren who pointed, my former boss, who pointed out that among the items that they list as confidential in their report and hers report are his notes, which he was making for a book he was writing after leaving the White House. And it was also pointed out that in that book there are descriptions by Biden of how he felt about the loss of his son. So, in other words, this was a hit job. And you have to ask yourself, if they needed to clear Biden because it was right and just, then why wasn't there anything comparable by Garland or anybody else to investigate Vice President Pence, who also voluntarily said he had confidential material as well? And the answer is plain. It is the error in our political system that allows this kind of miscarriage of justice in the absence of any accounting of those who do these corrupt, heinous, misleading, unfair investigations. It's little wonder that people who might think to run see this and run away. So it was kind of interesting that one of the Democratic members asked her if he would accept an appointment from Trump if Trump were to win the election. And he hemmed and hawed and didn't know what to say, because when you buy off a political neophyte, they don't know how to dance as the best do, who've been corrupt for many years. So he's a fledgling corrupt individual, just beginning to figure it out. And so he doesn't know how to handle those kinds of questions about what his real motives are. And as for Garland, it strikes me we have enough data points that he is a partisan, but he's reaching to hurt his president. I suppose we should be glad that he did not make it to the Supreme Court, where he would be in office probably longer and be able to cause more damage, as we've seen this Supreme Court do, for a longer period of time. So, like I said about Comey, I would say about her, he had no business being appointed. His report had no business being made public. And Garland knew better, but did it nonetheless. And for the comparable prosecution that might have been had, or investigation, of the vice president for the same conduct, there was no appointment. What can one conclude? Same thing like in the Supreme Court. People are talking about the law. This is shady politics. This is not about law. This is not about regular order. This is about, I want to win, and I don't give a damn what I have to do that. Now, there are real Republicans that are leaving the Congress. Representative Buck, I believe it is going out the door. And that means that the margin of difference in the House will be 218 to 213. So that means the Republican Speaker of the House has 213 plus 2 votes, but he has to be careful because he loses another one and he's lost. So they're going to try to rush the appointment of a substitute, and that can't happen for about 85 days as I understand it. What a shame, huh? Another quitting incident occurs with the police chief of Uvalde. Have you noticed that the worst public servants are those that don't get things done, don't get it done right? Standing outside as bystanders to the Uvalde slaughter strikes me as a failure of character. No imagination how to save those children. No risk taken to save those children. A parent did more than some of the officers. Well, the Uvalde police chief, following the investigation of his failure to act, basically, is quit. And you would say it's about time, since Uvalde, if I'm right, happened on May 22nd of the year of 2022. Finally, this is a story goes back to my childhood. At least my emphasis is, I used to joke that until I left my my home as a kid, I thought all meat was cooked black. And my dad unfairly referred them to hockey pucks, and my mom, who is a spirited lady herself, would get into it. And it was all kind of mock, but it was true that a lot of our meat was dark. And so at an early age, I joked that there was no fear of trichinosis in our household. It couldn't survive the cooking by which we had. In those days, I wasn't a vegetarian yet, although we had lots of vegetables, which I think accounts for me enjoying being a vegetarian, whereas some others who didn't have that feeling about vegetables when they were younger. But that's a whole other story. So why am I mentioning that? Well, here's the daisy chain that struck my attention today. It turns out that there's a man in his 50s who had migraine headaches, and the medication that he was using for them wasn't working. So they kept investigating, and they found a parasitic tapeworm larvae was occupying in recesses of his brain. Now, but here's the kick. Where did that larvae come from? And the answer, and it may be revised, but it appears that they're at a stage where they're comfortable enough to say it. It came from uncooked bacon. So, the Old Testament may have been right about that stuff. And, well, people have been on notice since science has become modern that one should cook, if not to blackness, the ham they may eat. So there's that story. So I say it not necessarily for you to become a vegetarian, as am I, but to keep that in mind, that we don't always know what's going on with what we're eating. I have high hopes that we continue to move forward and to succeed in ways that take advantage of the extremism of Republicans and the goodwill and common sense of the voters. But the real question is, in the battleground states, what are we doing and how are we doing it? Are we getting more voters? Are we getting more information to the persuadables? Are we visible with our explanations? And Biden's campaign has taken a step in that direction, and so I'm much encouraged by that. So on this 62-degree day, I want you to celebrate my evergreening cathedral of trees. All the best. Bye-bye.